I'm Mary Crowley, and this is Mostly Arts. Today I have as my guest Dr. Ana Guigui, who is a voice professor at Berklee College of Music, a singer, a songwriter, a pianist, an actor, a writer, a director, a musical director, and producer. She is a woman who wears many, many different hats. Ana, welcome.
Thank you, Mary Crowley. So great to be here with you.
It is great to be here with you. All right, let's talk about your growing up.
Okay.
You were born in New York City.
I was born in New York City. My parents were Argentinian immigrants from Buenos Aires, and my dad was a clarinetist professionally, pursuing his dream of being a conductor of symphony orchestras. My mom was an opera singer when they met. Born in New York City, and then we moved to Puerto Rico after my dad did his city center debut as a conductor. Pablo Casals invited him to play clarinet in the Pablo Casals Festival and to guest conduct. So the creme de la creme
So
would come.
he got his dream fairly early.
Well, actually, he was older. He actually debuted
okay.
City Center. I think he might have been, I have to look at and make sure and confirm this, but I think it was later than
All
most
right.
people. He was,
Okay.
I think, 30. It was later.
All right.
Because they immigrated from Argentina and they left everything behind. My dad was sponsored into this country by Aaron Copland, American
impressive.
composer, contemporary classical composer, and to premiere his chamber pieces at Tanglewood Festival. So invited my parents were emigrated from Argentina, moved to Boston first.
I didn't know
Because
that.
Tanglewood was on the outskirts
Right,
in Lenox. And so my dad and my mom lived in Boston for a few years, and then my dad really wanted to move to New York because that was where his career was going to blossom as a conductor. So he played clarinet in the New York Philharmonic, in the New York City Ballet. He told me stories about how he played in the World's Fair. In the little wagon that would go around the whole fair, and he played clarinet. So it got to a place where he wanted to conduct, and he premiered at City Center. My mom calls it debut. He did his debut at City Center, and he got great reviews. His specialty was contemporary classical music. So
Like Copland's.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So he started getting known in the circles. And then, like I said, Casals invited him, so we moved to Puerto Rico. So I grew up part of my childhood in Puerto Rico, which was amazing. I went to an amazing private American school, Coupeville, which is a bilingual school, Spanish and English. So I learned how to speak, read, and write fluently in both languages. But Spanish was my first language.
Right.
I struggled learning in English. My mom reminded me of that when I was older. So we moved from, and then Puerto Rico, Casals passed away. And my dad had been going to Vermont in the summers to conduct the Composers Conference, which Alan Carter had founded at Bennington College. So we would come every summer to Vermont for 2 weeks. And, we saw Vermont in its glory every summer. It was just amazing. Bennington College, that campus is stunning. So my brother also, I have an older brother, Martin, who plays violin in the Green Mountain Fiddlers, and we got to meet some of the kids who were in the Green Mountain Fiddlers. And there's a young group of adolescents who played string instruments. Val Mongello was the one who put that together. He was Middlebury based. And so in 1974, Casals passed away. Alan Carter committed suicide because he thought the bankruptcy of the Vermont Symphony was his fault. He founded the symphony. And so they called my dad and said, would you want to conduct the Vermont Symphony? And there's no salary because the symphony is bankrupt. And he saw it as an opportunity. There's only 50 states and 50 state symphony orchestras. So he said, I'm coming. So picked up the whole family. We moved to Middlebury, Vermont. And I went to Middlebury from 5th through 8th grade. The Vermont Symphony office was based at the Battelle Block building in Middlebury.
Right.
And my mom went to Middlebury College, got her Spanish literature master's degree. They had to recertify everything when they left the country. So, and she started the Spanish program at Middlebury High School. And then the symphony office moved to Burlington, Vermont. So we moved to Burlington. My mom ended up teaching at Essex Junction High School. I went to Essex High School, became a Hornet, would play field hockey against my friends in Middlebury in high school. And then I went to UVM, University of Vermont. So I my formative years were really based in Vermont.
Right.
Wonderful years. I made wonderful friends in Vermont.
And your father brought the Vermont Symphony Orchestra to a successful place.
He really
Right?
did, Mary.
Yeah.
I mean, the symphony was really struggling financially, and so because he had played with all these other people that were very high reputation, and Casals and all these people of high rep, he was able to invite people and build the symphony from the bottom up. And he created programs. He started the Shelburne Farms concerts for July 4th. He submitted to a Fulbright grant, which promoted classical music to go around the symphony members. Vermont Symphony members would go in chamber groups or small groups around the 251 towns in Vermont.
That's amazing.
To bring classical music. My dad's real goal was to keep classical music alive and to perpetuate
Right.
classical music forever, right? And he started a lot of music programs in different countries, Panama, Mexico. That was his interest, you know. But so
Well, thank God the VSO is still going.
the Vermont Symphony is still going, and I have to say that I don't know that would have been the case, and I don't want to do like this, but I have to give my dad kudos
Right,
because
absolutely.
he was passionate about music just like we all are in the family. My brother and I, my mom, we all are musicians, and
you're all
music
passionate, I
we
suppose.
are. Music is the driving force. It's the centrifugal force for life. It's
Right,
the impetus.
right.
So when I said to my dad, you know, he asked me when I was 9 or 10, he goes, "What do you want to do, you know, for a living?" And I said, "I want to play piano and sing." He said, "Okay." I mean,
So you've been doing that on other kinds of things too.
I have.
Yes, right.
It extended to other things, but
All
yes.
right, so Vermont. Then you went to New York City.
So I graduated from UVM, and I wanted to pursue my career as a singer, songwriter, actor, musician. Moved to New York City with nada, and I started from scratch. And I was working like part-time jobs as a secretary and receptionist, and doing whatever I had to do, and started auditioning for shows and for gigs, wedding bands, things like that. And I, after the first year, I landed my first off-Broadway show called Tony and Tina's Wedding, which was an interactive show. So you would buy your ticket for the show, and you would get a table number, like for a wedding. So the interesting part about that show was it was we'd go to the Waverly Street Church for first act, and then we'd move to the reception hall for the second act, and people would have their ticket and not know who's in the show and who isn't, because we were interacting with the audience. And so I was musical director. I played keyboards and sang, and I had a role called Celeste Romano, so I would dress up with a big beehive do, and you would interact with people, and things had to happen musically, point A to point B to point C, so that the story would move along. And it was about Tony and Tina's wedding. And
That sounds tricky.
It was-
You have to keep the story moving at the same time you're interacting with the audience.
You're interacting, you're playing, but there's just things that have to happen at certain points of the
Okay.
show. That was an incredible innovation, for its time. Nancy Casaro and her artificial intelligence group came up with that concept and developed it, and it was like a groundbreaking thing.
Okay.
So I did that. And then at Tony and Tina's wedding, we had a casting director from Sopranos come, and he recruited like half of us to do the first pilot of Sopranos. So I got to do that. That was fun. And so I started breaking into television stuff, and I was like, oh, I want to do more of this. And I stayed in New York for a long time. I got all my actors' equity card, I did my SAG card, I got all my union cards, musician's card. So I was able to work on a high level and get compensated for it. And
So you didn't have to do the secretarial work after a while.
I did at the beginning, but after a
Okay.
while, no. I could then bridge over into real world, like this is what I wanted to do, and then my name was out there, and I had an agent, and like things start moving forward.
Okay.
And I did that for long 15 years, and then I was like, okay, it's time to move on.
Well, you said, when we spoke, you said you did some wedding gigs.
Oh yeah, no, I'm vested in the Musicians Union, because I sang probably 3 weddings a weekend in New York City at
Okay.
an agency called Stephen Scott Orchestras. Weddings were huge back in that day. In the 80s, it was like everybody was doing this. And everybody who toured also, when they come off the road, you have to keep working. So you would work in
Right.
the wedding bands and pick up gigs. And so I learned so much by doing those gigs. People downtrod, wedding bands, but I learned how to sing every style. I could apply to every language. I did do 50s, 60s, 70s. You have to learn music of every era.
Yeah, and you told me this morning, you can sing in quite a number of different languages.
I sing in 5 languages. That's due to my doctorate in opera. So I got a doctorate in opera from USC Thornton School of Music in Los Angeles. But part of that is the way I grew up, Spanish was my first language, English my second. My parents were very international people, and so we had a lot of international friends. And once you learn a language, a Romance language, when you're young, you have an ear for it. Mm-hmm. So I learned French in high school and college. That was my third language. And then if I hear Italian, I can get by. But I sing in German, Italian, I sing lieder, I sing, different styles and genres within the classical realm as well. So it's a requirement when you're an opera doctorate.
You wear so many hats. You have a story about Radio City Musical.
So when I graduated from UVM, I wanted to move to New York City, but I had to get a job. So I ended up being an intern, like a paid intern at Radio City Music Hall. I thought, where do I want to work? Where do I want to kind of explore? And I knew Radio City Music Hall because of the Rockettes and Christmas show, and they had amazing performances there. And I thought, let me see how that works, because I eventually would want to be there as a performer. So I was behind the scenes, and I worked in every department in Radio City Music Hall. And at one point, I worked in the president's office, and they liked me so much, they offered me a full-time job. And I was like, I can't.
But that isn't what you wanted to do.
It wasn't what I wanted to do. I was so appreciated, but
right.
I was like, I went on and moved on and started doing performances and such. But at one point, when you're a freelance artist, you're always trying to find your next gig while you're on your job, right? What's my next job going to be? So I started masterminding things and creating jobs for myself. And I thought, I've got this facility for languages. Spanish and English is big. New York City is a bilingual city. I said, I have an idea. And I pitched Radio City Music Hall. And I said, if you let me translate your Christmas spectacular, your Christmas show, into Spanish, you will have a whole other demographic of audience. And it will be a great sellout. And they loved, not sellout, but a great selling point. And they loved the idea, so I ended up translating the whole show into Spanish. And how we did it is there was a musical director, David Chase, who oversaw the musical aspects, and we figured out that how do we do this? Because there's a cast of Americans singing, but they're not all bilingual. Mm-hmm. So we ended up deciding we're going to re-record the vocal tracks to the tracks that already exist. Also had to be financially viable. Mm-hmm. And the actors would lip sync it. I mean, that was just how we would get around this. And it worked, So I spent 3 months in my chair at my studio apartment in New York City translating every lyric of the Christmas carols into Spanish, which was amazing.
Right, that must have been exciting.
It was an amazing experience. So I do that. I translate pop songs into Spanish. I kind of do that, and I write songs in Spanish too. So, and I sing in Spanish,
Right.
So.
All right, New York City, then L.A.
L.A.
What did you do in L.A.?
So, when you pursue the arts, you're a flourishing artist, you're developing your craft, you're just kind of at the whim of what window's going to open. I audition for all these things, who will say yes? I'll go through that door. Whoever says no, I don't go through that door, I go a different way. 15 years in New York City, I was working all the time, and just there was never enough money to get through the next month. I was like, I have to keep working. So I thought, I really have to get to the next level. So my brother had moved to Los Angeles, and he is now a film director and producer, and he has a production company, and he's also a musician and music producer. We wear a lot of hats. And he said, he had just moved, he goes, you need to come to LA. He goes, there's a lot of work here for you. Check it out. So I went out for a couple of weeks, and I picked up a manager, and the manager sent me on a job, and I got the job, and I thought, okay, this could work. So I blocked out my schedule for the next 6 months, saying no to jobs in New York, making my plan to move to Los Angeles, and then I moved to LA. And I had a friend in New York City who said, I have a friend who's a casting director at General Hospital. I'll set you up with an audition. And I said, okay, that would be great. And I did an audition, and I got cast as the recurring waitress at Kelly's, the diner. My name was Penny, and I mean, this is interesting, Mary. I would go to the supermarket. I was only on the show it'd be two or 3 days a week. I'd be recurring a small part. I would say 2 lines oh, did you hear what happened to Laura? I'd be like that gossip person, and the overhearing people at the diner. I lost my train of thought, but. So
you got the part of
I
Penny
got the recurring
in
part.
the diner.
Right. And so I would go to the supermarket and people go, "Are you Penny?" I'd say, "Yeah." I mean, really? Like, people would recognize me. But I had a recurring role in the show for a couple of years. I got my AFTRA card. There was a time when SAG and AFTRA were separate unions. They've come together since then. But I was a member of all the unions at that point. I was able to work on a high level. I was able to get paid for my jobs. I was able to start really building a resume of work. And
in addition to working, you got your master's and doctorate in vocal performance when you were in LA.
So
that seems like a lot.
So what happens?
You bounce around. You do different kinds of things at different times.
I know. I follow my heart.
Anna.
Listen, I follow my heart, and the career. When you're on an artistic path, it's never a straight line, Mary. So there's feast or famine. There's times when there's a lot of work, and then there's times when there's not any work.
Okay.
So I have to plan ahead. I have to figure out those things and fill the gaps. Stash a little money for the off season of wedding, and go into summer stock, do summer stock, or like whatever I have to do. So, yes, I've done many things, but when I had that career, I was just working. So I had already had my undergrad degree from UVM, but I never planned on going beyond that in terms of academia. I never had an intention to become a professor, a teacher. My parents were professors. My mom was a Spanish teacher in high school, Spanish. My dad taught music, was a professor at Dartmouth, but he was a conductor. Mm-hmm. He conducted the Dartmouth Symphony. That was his impetus, but he had to supplement because when he came to Vermont, there was no salary when he first came here. So you find ways, right? You fill the gap. Right. So the school piece came later. When we were in Los Angeles, we moved my parents out to LA when they retired. We wanted to have my parents close by. My dad was diagnosed with cancer, so we said we will help take care of him. So it was a lot for my mom by herself here. So, and the winters were really cold. It was really a lot for them. So we moved them to Los Angeles with us, and those were glorious years with my parents. I mean, we just got to spend time together. And then my father passed away of cancer, and I thought, what am I going to do? I was touring at that time with Christopher Cross. I was touring with him for 8 years, playing keyboards and singing, and it was amazing. I got to see the world. I got wonderful experiences, and I could perform at the drop of a hat. I really learned a lot. But it was time now to help my mom and to figure out my next steps. And so I thought, okay, I will get my master's degree, I'll get an advanced degree, and I'll profess. I'll be a professor. I'll get a tenure-track job. I'll have stability, consistency. Well, academia has its own, struggles too. It's not a straight line. So I got my master's degree, and then I had to figure out if I was going to get my doctorate so I could get a job. So I did what's called informational interviews. I interviewed at the schools where I thought I wanted to teach, and one of the interviews was at Berkeley. And that was after I got my master's degree, and the consensus in most schools were like, you need a doctorate to really get a tenure-track professorship, and it's more security, So I interviewed at Berkeley. I actually got accepted to USC Thornton School of Music for my doctorate. I got a scholarship. And then that summer of 2011, Berkeley called me because they had my resume on file from my informational interview, and they said, would you like to teach here for the summer? So I was still getting my doctorate, but I had summer off, so I went, taught at Berkeley, and they offered me a full-time job at the end of that summer. And I was deciding, as I do with everything in my life when it comes to career and path, so I want to finish my doctorate. I have a scholarship. I don't know. I mean, I'll get a job, but who knows if that will continue or not, or what happens. I want my doctorate. So they said, Berkeley said, call us when you're done. We'll have something for you. So finished my doctorate. I called Berkeley, and they invited me in for an appointment as a voice professor. So I moved from Los Angeles to Boston, and I missed New England. I wanted to come back east. I missed the green. I missed the whole vibe here. So I really love New England.
Kinder climate in LA.
Yeah, climate in LA is warm. It's lovely, sunny, but I like the change of seasons. I really love that. And summer and fall in Vermont, you can't beat it. That is just quintessential Vermont. Yes. Beautiful. And the people, that's really what it is. Right?
All right, so Boston and Vermont on the weekends now. And you are an associate professor at Berklee College of Music.
I'm actually a full professor. I'm actually I've been promoted. Through COVID, I got promoted to professor.
Okay.
I'm a full professor.
Oh, we didn't talk about COVID. What did you do during COVID?
So COVID, Berkeley is, at the forefront of technology and such when it comes to music. And so we had a spring break when they announced that something was going on in the world.
It was March.
It was March. And we had a meeting at school, and they said, you must go home today, take everything out of your lockers. We don't know when you're coming back. That was what they said. We all went home. They said, we will have a training this week. They trained us all how to convert all our curriculum to online teaching. I mean, we had to convert.
So you finished out the semester online?
Yeah.
Okay.
We converted and we switched over to digital, you know, and I had to teach acting, singing. We had to adjust all that. So we did that for the year. I mean, from there to the following, it was a lot. It was a lot. But it was possible because of the technology and because Berkeley is so good at what they do. And the teachers are all so, I have to say, we have amazing professors, amazing musicians, amazing level of artistry in our teaching. So everybody adjusted and adapted. We had to. You know, it's what it was. Yep. And actually, Zoom has turned out to be an incredible, you know, teaching online is a really viable way of learning and teaching. It really is if you use it the right way. So it was a whole other way to teach.
Okay.
So COVID. So that was 2020. And coming out of that, now it's part of, you know, we incorporate it into a lot of our teaching. So.
Okay. So you were still teaching at Berkeley, but also in Boston, you got your master's in creative writing. Why?
So a few years ago, I've always been interested in writing TV pilots, and I've always acted in plays, musical theater. I direct a lot of musical theater at Berkeley. I write songs. I'm a songwriter. So I wanted to learn. I always like to learn things the right way and the deepest way possible. I like to know as much as possible. I'm a learner. So I applied for an MFA in creative writing so I could learn to write screenplays, plays, and TV pilots. So I've written a few, and I submit to festivals, and I've been a finalist in a few. And my dream is my next step is I want to really shoot and produce and direct my first short film, which is a romantic comedy, which is very fun. And I've gotten some accolades and attention with that script. So that's something I will continue to devise my creativity through that medium.
All right, so you've got your music and you've also got your writing. They're two separate.
They're actually all complementary.
Oh.
I feel like one feeds the other. So my singing, songwriting, acting, my piano skills, my musical directing skills, everything helps with the writing because you're telling stories.
Right, right.
And I've had a diary since I was 5 years old. I would write and journal. I've always written. I've written 7 solo plays, autobiographical plays. I've always written and acted and sung and done all the things that I do in those mediums. And it's a way to connect all my dots, you know. So when I knew work was going to be slow in the real world, I was like, I would apply and get a grant and then do my show for 6 weeks, my one-woman show, you know.
Oh, we didn't talk about your one-woman show.
There's a few. So I've written a few. And
God Box was one of them.
God Box was my search for a soulmate. Which, you know, I mean, is a common thread. People relate to it. And I told 4 pivotal stories of different dating situations I was in. And it was comedic, dramatic, and I had music incorporated into it. So I wrote songs. And so it was very cathartic, I have to say. Because not all breakups are good, right? So the search for my soulmate, that was what that show was about. So, and the God Box, the concept is you write a list of all your wishes of what you'd like your partner to have, and then you put that list in the God Box and you wish for it. So,
and it might come true.
It might come true someday. I'm still searching.
Talk about what you do at Berkeley. You do more than just teach voice.
Yes, you know, today teachers, professors, the job is very demanding. It's multifaceted. So we don't just teach the craft. There's also this whole component of human being. You know, you're the therapist, you're the sociologist, you're the support, the parent, the sister. You're really like everything to the student. There are so many stressors today, you know, and because the students are working with computers and phones and online all day, you know, there's something, it really impacts the processing of information. And so we have to find analog ways to connect with students, and that's why, you know, I devised curriculum and how to write solo plays and how to perform them, and I love directing musical theater and those kind of things that are analog, that are like people in the room.
Right.
Teaching, I teach private lessons, voice lessons, I teach recital preparation, I teach music theory, musicianship, I've taught all sorts of subjects. I direct ensembles, we coach ensembles of all different styles, so you're singing in front of a band that sings, you know, plays different styles of music. So you have to have a real thorough understanding, a deep understanding of what makes a certain style that genre, what the rhythm, the sound, the melodies, you know. So you have to be very well-rounded, you know, to teach music. And Berklee is a cross-genre, interdisciplinary environment. So it's not just a performance school. There are people who come to study to be film scorers or producers, engineers, music therapy, music education, music business. There are many other facets that involve
That is
music.
interesting.
It's very
Okay.
interesting. So the students that come, you have to audition and sing or perform on an instrument, because you have to take 4 semesters of an instrument, and then your core is what your major will be. But the students are fascinating.
Even if I want to be a vocalist, I have to study an instrument?
No, you would audition on voice.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you would audition on voice. But I'm saying if you don't sing, you play
Right.
piano, then you would take 4 semesters of piano,
Okay.
along with your major, if it's not performance, if it's something else.
Right.
But students are it's an international environment. It's fascinating. I mean, it's teaching every day, but it's not the same thing every day.
Okay.
It varies. It changes all the time.
Okay, now you are going to China this summer.
I teach in China every summer in August. This is private. Aside from Berklee, we all, you know, as professors, we teach in different environments sometimes, and we perform in different environments. We freelance in different environments. So I teach students how to prepare for auditions in America and other countries, and I have a 100% success rate. My students do
Hooray.
really well. I know how to prepare them for audition and interview. I've done that at Berklee for many years. So yeah, the trip is also education for me. I went to the Great Wall. I've seen incredible aspects of culture. It's very educational for me to be immersed in another culture, right? And how they learn and how I teach. So it's improved my teaching pedagogy tremendously.
You said something which struck a chord with me. You have kept in touch with people that you have connected with one way or another over the years.
People and students and
Right.
professors, yes. And, you know, I come to Vermont on the weekends and I play on the weekends in Brandon. And I have friends from childhood that I met when I was 5 who come to visit me, who hear that I'm here on the weekends and come see me play. And they're friendships that the bonds never, ever go away. There's something about Vermont that is magical here. And so, and I keep in
But you
touch
also have told me that you connected with some people that you worked with.
Here in Vermont?
No, in California, in New York.
Oh, there are people that come through that travel that, yeah, I mean, I'm always connected to people everywhere I've been and everywhere I travel. It's always friends and people I can visit with and play with and yeah. It never goes away. That connection with people, for me, is the big piece.
Right.
Community is the most important thing to me,
Right.
everywhere I go.
Well, you are connected in many ways with many people, and you wear so many hats, and you are delightful. And I'm so happy you were willing to be interviewed.
Thank you, and I love being connected with you, Mary Crowley.
I love
You're
being
amazing.
connected with you,
Thank
Anna.
you for having me.
Okay. And thank you for watching.